Welcome to Relax and Chat, episode 54. Today we have esteemed writer Richard C. White. Hi, Richard. How are you doing today?
I'm doing real well, Rod. Thank you very much for inviting me along tonight.
Oh, I've really been looking forward to chatting with you. There's so many things I wish I could cover. We'll cover as much as we can in my little limited show.
All righty.
All right. Well, with that, I'll go ahead and jump right into the questions. I found this first one very fascinating, so I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. I've been told in 5 years or 6 years that I've been doing this, being a writer and other things I do, that a fan fiction writer can pretty much write anything they want to write. But if they want to publish it, then they have to try to find the owner of the rights and buy the right to publish it from them. I don't know if that's true or not. I'll leave that to
hmm
you in a moment. But I saw on my research that I do for every show that you are a media tie-in writer. Now, that's a term I've never heard before. And I was hoping you could let us know, are they the same thing and how do they differ?
Well, a media tie-in writer is somebody who, as you said, either works for a publisher or has acquired the license from the person who owns the intellectual property to do works. Um, and it's not unlike, like if a movie wants to use music, they have to reach out to the artist and, then pay a license to use that music in their movie. Same
Mhm.
thing for us. If I want to write a story about, and I've had worked for some incredible franchises, like my Star Trek books. I would never write Star Trek by myself.
Mhm.
For one, I couldn't afford the license,
Mhm.
and two, as you said, fan fiction. If you're doing it unlicensed, you're really not supposed to publish it.
Yeah.
You can share it amongst your friends, but you can't, make money off it.
Mhm.
Uh, Again, a media tie-in writer actually usually works through a publisher. It has to go through editorial for the publisher, and then it also has to go through editorial at the licensor. So, like when I did, like if I write Star Trek or when I did the Incredible Hulk story, I wrote my story. I sent it to the editor. The editor made his changes, and then we had to send it over to creative licensing, and then they could go, "Yeah, no, that's not quite right. We want you to make these," because again, you're playing in somebody else's sandbox. They
Yeah.
get the final say on, what you do.
Mhm.
Some licensors are very restrictive,
Mhm.
as in apparently the story was always that, like the original Star Wars books that were coming out, George literally was supposed to have read every one of them and signed off on them himself
Well,
before any of the Star Wars books came out. That could be apocryphal, I don't know, but that's the story.
uh-huh.
Other other licensors, especially some of the smaller ones, are just happy to get a story out, and they tend to be kind of hands offish, and just as long as you're not doing something that's going to get them sued or put their property in a bad light,
Oh,
they're happy to get a story out because that's kind of found money for them in a way,
uh-huh.
because they get the licensing fee plus usually they get a cut of the properties. Again, with fan fiction has advantages. There are no editors. There's
Mhm.
nobody standing over your shoulder saying you can't do that, which is why you get a lot of spicier stories in fan fiction than you necessarily would in a media tie-in, in an authorized media tie-in book.
Yeah.
I think it kind of gets called media tie-in because a lot of the original, when they first were starting to do this, a lot of these were like novelizations of movies. So they were tied to a property,
Uh-huh.
and then it just kind of became an over, you know, bounding, title for the whole genre. And
Oh.
you can do media tie-in and everything. It's not just science fiction and fantasy. I mean, they do, Criminal Minds 22, I mean 24, that the TV show, you know, the unit,
Mhm.
different. I mean, they're pretty much, if there's a TV show, a hot movie, And they even um, are some where they've, I mean, I haven't seen any plays yet, but I'm sure that would it wouldn't have surprised me. And what's really funny is there's actually fan fiction of books. So people are like taking books and it's really popular in children's books because people my age are thinking back to stuff that they read back when they were 10, 12, 14, and going, I really love that book. Let me try my hand at writing something like that. Well,
Mhm.
that'd probably never get published because one, finding out who actually owns the rights to it is, at this point, that would be, an effort to track it down. But, people still, I mean, I've seen people writing Hardy Boy fan fiction and Nancy Drew fan fiction and, stuff like that. So I mean, and it's a perfectly legitimate way to work on your writer chops,
Mhm.
because sometimes you don't have to worry about the world building. That's already done. So you could just focus on writing your story.
Mhm.
And then once you get some confidence, then you start wanting to branch out and build your own worlds.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I can see the differences and they make a lot of good sense. I can kind of see how some franchises would be very strict. Star Trek, Star Wars, and many others have very defined timelines. And if you wrote a novel that screwed up their timeline, that could be a bad thing. So I can see where they would want to check them.
And that's it. And that's what actually affected me because I got a chance to write for Doctor Who, which
Oh.
was, I mean, I'm not going to tell I mean, okay, well, I would have almost paid Big Finish rather than getting the check from them just to say I'd written a Doctor Who story.
Yeah.
But I wound up doing a Hartnell story, the first Doctor. Well, the problem is a lot of his episodes don't exist anymore because the BBC got rid of them.
Mhm.
So even though I'd read most of the scripts, I was still worried that I was going to write something and then somebody who, because since it's a British publisher, all I needed was to have somebody over in London go, wait, no, I remember that episode. That's not exactly what happened. And I don't want to get, because, Whovians can be just as persnickety as Trekkies and all the other people. So I cheated and I set my story before the television show started. So I still had the doctor, I still had Susan, but I could make up whatever I wanted to have happen because I'm telling stories that didn't make it to TV.
Oh.
So I didn't have to worry about, wait, was this companion at the same time as that companion, or did when wait, was that before or after the Daleks showed up? And so I said, heck with it. I just went completely off the rails and said, no matter what I did, I can't contradict anything on the television show because I'm ahead of the television show. And the publisher thought that was an interesting idea because they hadn't gotten many stories like that.
Cool. Well, I feel compelled to say something, but I will need you to either confirm or correct me, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously you're the expert. I'm not an expert of anything. All right. But I would like to say to the audience, fan fiction is great practice and a lot of fun. Don't publish it without acquiring the license. You can be
Oh,
sued out the wazoo.
there
Now
was
I
a there
have
was a
the
young
expert's
lady.
opinion on that.
There was a young lady who decided to rewrite Star Wars to incorporate so the first Star Wars novel to incorporate the information out of the prequels, which is fine. And then she published it she was selling it on Amazon, and the that was a lesson on how big you know 600-pound gorilla lawyers are when they show
Yeah.
up at your door, and it got really ugly really fast.
Yeah, well, the investors and everyone involved in a multi-million-dollar film or a storyline, yeah, they're going to protect it.
Hmm.
I don't blame them. I would,
Yeah, and this was Star Wars pre-Disney. Nowadays, I don't even want to think about what the Disney lawyers would do.
Oh my, how many dozen Disney lawyers would there be?
More
Yeah,
than I can afford.
writers, enjoy writing fan fiction. If that's your thing, have a ball. This gentleman knows. Yeah, if you want to try to publish something, take the time, make the effort, find the owner of the rights, and then hope you have enough money to buy the right to make your novel. That's an awful lot to do to go from fan fiction. You might be better off just to write your own novel.
And that's usually most fan fiction authors get picked from already existing authors. There's a few different ways in. I know I snuck in the back door, but for the most part, people who write media tie-in works already have established writer credits.
Mhm.
So and it's primarily just to keep the licensor happy and relaxed because they know that what kind of quality they should be getting as opposed to if they just let anybody write it, yeah, you never know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I own a little tiny publishing house, and I know what anybody writer looks like. And I'm not going to get into a debate or even pat each other on the back. I'm not going to go there.
Mm,
But AI writing.
yes, yes, I'm right there with you.
Well, I'd like to move on because like I said at the beginning, oh, I wish I had 8, 10 hours that we could chat. There's so much that I wish I could talk about. But I use a free version of my app, and this show is limited, and it'll literally cut us off. So I have to kind of stick to a timeline.
Okay.
Um, the next thing I'd like to ask you about is Amazon says you published at least 24 different books. On Wings of Steel is one of them. Now, Amazon lists this as a steampunk sci-fi. Could you tell us a bit about that story and what makes it steampunk?
Okay. On Wings of Steel is the first of three books in the Dark Side Chronicles. Basically, I was approached by a publisher years ago to help develop a steampunk world for them. They were going to do a shared universe, kind of like Thieves World, or one of those where you have a single setting but multiple authors get to write in it.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that publisher went out of business,
Mhm.
but I got the rights to the story Bible back. So I got the world back, and I'm like, well, I've got this. I might as well do something with it. And the idea behind it was there was an old Star Trek episode years ago in the original series called The Cloud Minders, where you have the really wealthy people living in these floating cities above the planet, and then the workers all have to live down on the planet with this strange radiation that's kind of that's affecting their bodies and their minds. And I
Mhm.
was like going, okay, now let's but I like that whole dichotomy, the high, the low, the wealthy, the not wealthy. And I thought, well, how could we do that in a steampunk setting? So I created basically this city built on this island. And since it's on an island, it can't go out, so it has to go up.
Mhm.
And then about 100 years ago, for some reason that only I know, this cloud of pollution basically cut the city in half. So it basically sets between the 45th and the 75th floors. So you
Mhm.
have what's called the dead zone. The wealthy all live up in the sunshine on day side, and everybody else has to live down in and deal with the acid rain, the just pollution, the dark skies, the no vegetation. And so it gives me a great setting to talk about, not only the characters that are involved in On Wings of Steel, but just to talk about, the human condition, the haves, the have nots. But I mean, it literally is you have sunlight, you don't have sunlight. You
Mhm.
have fresh air, you don't have fresh air. And then for the worst, and for the people who have nowhere to go, they have the underground, which is where they've hollowed out part of the island and put all their heavy industry in there. And literally nobody would live down in that area except that literally there's nowhere else to go. That's the lowest of the low in
Mhm.
its own way. And in Wings of Steel is set up to where I have a character who is a courier. She works for an elite service, and because again the town is so congested and not only tall, but roads don't really connect well and stuff because it's urban sprawl. They have mechanical wings, and they fly through the city delivering packages, messages, etc. And of course, they're an elite, so they get to charge a lot,
Uh-huh.
but they wind up having to uh, take stuff from dark side to day side and back.
Oh.
In the story, they're actually, because again, they're kind of an unusual thing to see, these young women on flying through the thing, but they're asked to perform at a festival that's going on in the city.
Uh-huh.
And right after the festival, while my character is kind of relaxing, this body falls literally out of the sky and lands on the canopy, right, or the on the balcony right beside her.
Oh.
So of course, everybody assumes she did it because she's the only one there. Then they find out it's the daughter of an ambassador. So now they don't care who did it. Somebody's got to take the blame.
Oh.
So the authorities have got their fall person. So it's up to her and her friends to try and get to the truth of the matter and find out what actually happened. And of course, as we go along, we start introducing, there's some air pirates, there's a secret society, there's, let's just say there's stuff going on
Uh-huh.
that and and she winds up getting drug into a situation that's much bigger than, because again, all she ever wanted to do was just fly around the town.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't ask for any of this, but now she's got to deal with it.
Oh. Oh,
And so it was a lot of fun. Basically, like I said, you take your main character and then you throw some rocks at him, and then you throw some flaming rocks at him, then you throw bigger flaming rocks at him, until the end of the story.
Mhm. Oh, I think it sounds fantastic. I was thinking that I think I would like to fly around on mechanical wings until I got about 50 feet in the air, in which case I might get very afraid. But I think I'd almost like to try it though.
Well, and actually, we bring that up in the story that the one of the people, because they have to go through. I mean, it's basically like military boot camp
Oh.
when they're flying. Because and someone goes, well, why are you being so strict, and why are we have so many? And they said, because when you step off a roof at 200 feet in the air, you better know what you're doing. It isn't time to go, wait, what am I supposed to do? Because by that time you're already face planting on the asphalt.
Mm.
So we insisted, when you get up, you have to do it this way. You put on your wings like this. You check your buddy's wings. You make sure that everything is, in place. And we drill that into you over and over because, again, once you've, left the confines of your roof, it's all on you.
Yeah.
And it's a bad time to remember you forgot to put something on, when you're, yeah, 60, stories up in the air.
I tell you what, just from your description, on wings of steel sounds like a big old bushel basket full of creativity. I mean, so many of the different things you said could probably be a story in their own right, all combined into this one story. It sounds wonderful. It sounds like something really exciting.
And I'm working actually now on Wings of Glass, which is the sequel to it. Because
Uh-huh.
I kind of, as I tell people, I look at trilogies kind of like the old Star Wars movies.
Mhm.
The first one should be it's a complete story with hooks to go on to the next one. The second one, everything goes to heck in a handbasket. The
Mhm.
third book, you kind of wrap everything up, but you leave a few hooks out there again just in case you want to do a second trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
so I'm right
all.
now. I won't claim it's my Empire Strikes Back because that's a high standard to hold to, but that's kind of where I'm at right now because every time they turn around, something is not right.
Sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. Because of my little show's time limits, I need to move on to the next thing.
Hmm.
This sounds so interesting, and I hope we'll have time. We'll probably have to take a break at a point, but let's see if we can get this one in.
Okay,
Just released in March this year is Cry Havoc, a novella collection. Now, this sounds like a lot of fun. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
absolutely. Cry Havoc is my love letter to the golden age of comics.
Mhm.
What I'm doing is I have decided to kind of create my own Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mhm.
As you see, I'm also a big movie buff, so I tend to go to those examples. Um, I've chosen six characters who are in public domain, and but they're all 80 years old. So I thought the idea of putting a team together right up front would be really confusing.
Mhm.
So what I'm doing is the first two books are going to each have three novellas, each featuring one character. So I give each one their own chance to shine before I bring them then in together as a team. And the first book is going to uh, have Black Venus, who was a aviatrix during World War II. She was in the Japanese theater, and she used to fly a P-38
Uh-huh.
along with being a so. And all of these are actually mystery women too. I didn't want to do super powered characters,
Uh-huh.
so Black Venus is one. I'm doing Miss Espionage, who is the daughter of Mata Hari. She was actually a German spy who got turned at the end of the war and now works for the United States. And the fun part with that was she literally was only in two comics. They introduced her in one. She had her first real adventure in number two, and then the comic got canceled. So there were
Oh,
never any more issues with her in it.
oh,
And then
definitely a story yet to be told, right?
absolutely. And the third character is the cat, which was which is based on Harvey's Black Cat, but I don't use the Black Cat because I don't want Marvel, getting they get all defensive when you use anything with superheroes and Black Cat. So even though there's no way in the world they'd ever be confused with each other. It's just easier to avoid the lawyers as we were talking about.
Uh-huh.
And so I've got those three characters will be in the first book, each one with their own novel about 30,000 words each. And again, it's really I want to give each one of them a chance to shine before, because obviously sometimes in team books, you had to kind of shift around and nobody really gets to stay on stage very long.
Mhm.
So this is again a chance to reintroduce the characters and just have a little fun, and it also helps me get to know them better, so that when I write the team book, I already know the characters.
Ah, that's really cool too, because a reader who reads these three novellas, and if I understand correctly, they're combined in this one book.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And so they
So
read that, and then of course when the story comes out where the characters are put together, I would imagine your readers are going to be starving to read that. So that's really exciting. That should be a lot of fun for the reader, I think.
yeah, I'm like I said, I'm hoping to get one out a year, so or at least I want to get the novella books out back to one this year, one next year, and then 2028 would be the first novel. So
Uh,
I don't want to call them prequels
uh-huh.
or prologues, but that it's kind of a like I said, it's a chance for the people to get familiar with them, because again, it's there are certain people who are really into old school comics that would recognize them, but I also want to make it to where that a modern reader could feel comfortable with them even without having to go back and read the old comics.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there will be a lot of people that just our age and our generations, there'll be a lot of people that never heard of these characters, but they'll be
Hmm.
brand new, fresh characters. So that's fun. And then those who can remember the older characters will kind of love what he called the homage to them, you know?
Hmm.
And so either way, you win. So I think that's fantastic. I think it's a brilliant idea. Uh, Something I hadn't thought of. I'm ashamed of myself, but it's a great idea.
Oh man, I mean, I fully support copyright, and that people should get a chance to make some money off their property.
Mhm.
But also, when things fall into public domain, there's no reason not to take advantage of it.
Oh
And
yeah,
there are some I mean, obviously some things are depending on when they were obviously are going to be tied up for 100 years.
yeah.
But some of the older stuff that when people just simply didn't renew their copyrights after 26 years, well, hey, it's fair
Mhm.
game,
Yeah.
and let's go.
Well, one
But I
thing
was, but
I
I also want to
see,
treat them properly. I want to treat them with respect. I don't want to,
yeah.
I don't want to do Winnie the Pooh mass murderer like like
Mhm.
that movie that came out, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh come on, that's just that's where you look at public domain. You're like, well, maybe some of you people shouldn't be allowed to do that stuff.
Yeah. I think those works in the public domain, I'm not going to say how many because I don't know. I'm just going to take a big guess that a lot of them. These are classic works that are well respected, very much loved. You know, the ones I read that are in public domain certainly are. And if you
Hmm.
want to reintroduce them, and there's certain rules you've got to follow to do that. And
Hmm.
if you want to do that, that's fine. But the key word that you actually said, I fully agree with, respect the original work and the original author. Don't butcher their work. I never
Yeah.
watched that Winnie the Pooh movie, but I think it's an utterly ridiculous and stupid idea that they should have never done because little Winnie the Pooh, A, was female, B, was a lovable, sweet little character. Now, if you want to put Winnie the Pooh in a precarious situation that couldn't be done in a little cartoon show, great. But don't turn her in this whatever that was supposed to be. You know, respect the
Yeah.
original work. And you were the first one to say respect. I want to make sure I give the credit for that, you know.
Yeah.
But I totally, completely agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I have nothing against somebody reimagining a character.
Mhm.
And if you want to take a character who's in public domain, and that's a lot of lot of companies are doing, like say Dynamite Comics and some of the others are taking at AC Comics also was great. They took Golden Age characters and then they brought them into a modern day where some of them were like, cryogenically frozen and woke back up and in modern, or some of them were like the daughters or granddaughters of the heroes who are now working, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with with reimagining what a character could be like,
Mhm.
as long as you keep the essence of what made the character,
Yeah.
because it's because otherwise, why not just create your own character and and then now you own it, and
Yeah.
nobody can tell you you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many writers are so shy to just create their own work, which you would think that would be a natural instinct of a writer. Well, again, my show is what it is. I'm afraid we're going to have to take a short break. Um, but we'll come back as quickly as possible because there's so much more I want to talk about, so much fascinating stuff. Richard, I'm having a ball. I love your explanation of a media tie-in writer, something I had never heard of. And it was so cool that you spelled that out. On Wings of Steel sounds, like I said, like a bushel basket of creativity. I can't wait to read it. Uh, yeah, just so much cool stuff. And this Cray Havoc, I've got to check it. Boy, I guess my TBR is just going to have to grow. That's all there is to
Yeah, I'm
it.
always worried. My team. I'm just waiting for, not that we get many earthquakes in Maryland, but I'm just waiting for the one that's going to tipple my pile over on top of me, and they'll just find a couple of hands and a couple of feet sticking out.
To the audience, we're going to take a very brief break. Believe me, I'm going to hurry back as quickly as I can. Stick with us. There's a lot of good stuff coming.